been on paper for 20 years now. How's that? Where the hell you at? I've been getting paid. Yeah. Exactly. That's why we're here. It has become a number. Hey. Can't say check to Jack Harris, no. It's a check to you. Get sick of passing the funny money, so I just go to a card.
I better go pee real quick.
Well, we'll
It's
be all
water.
right. Huh? So we'll get all over here. That's the same here.
Hello, hello, hello. Happy Sunday, everybody. Thank you for being here. Appreciate each and every one of you that show up in any capacity that you are able to, as always. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put our intention up here. If you haven't seen the intention yet, I released it on Friday instead of Saturday this week. Wondering what everybody thinks and how you feel about it coming out on Friday. I feel like it coming out before the weekly video is a good thing. Can't really hurt anything to have that intention in mind while you're listening to the video, and then you might start cultivating things on your own that may possibly kind of lead you into a similar realm that where we find ourselves here in the meditation. That weekly video is always where you're going to find a more complete breakdown of the transits and all of the aspects that we have during the week. We mentioned the moon aspects, we mentioned the planetary aspects, we go day by day through that video, and then we come here on Sundays and we focus a little bit more specifically on a way that we can all broadly lean into the energies that are around, yet tailor them and make them a little bit more specific to what you have going on. Because of course, the planets that are out and the aspects that are going on and the symbolism behind those are prevalent for all of us in some way, some form. Maybe different varying severities based on, you know, what else is going in our chart and where they're hitting and things like that. But they hit all of us in some way, or at least there's some sort of themes or effect of them out there. And it's a little bit different for all of us. It depends on the placements, it depends on the house, it depends on other aspects like I mentioned. So start out broad, come out with a broad intention, and then you can kind of tailor that specific to your life where you see and feel that going on. Or just keep it kind of broad and just see where it goes. So this is our intention for this week. And I hope that this one feels good. I hope they all feel good, but I really hope this one feels good. So this week, love and hope prevail. Love and hope prevail. Love and hope prevail. So let's sit with that intention for just a moment, just seeing what comes up when you sit with those words, not knowing any of the astrology, not having any outside influence, just what comes up within your being. What does it make you think about? What does it make you feel? Does it make you excited? Does it make you nervous? Does it make you anxious? Does it make you ready to do something? Does it make you not want to do something? Just seeing what goodness comes up on your own here. Hello, Susan. Hello, Melissa. Saying hi in the comments. Yeah, I like Friday too. I think that's probably a good thing. So I'm going to try to switch over to Friday instead of Saturday for those intentions. So we will see there. Okay, let's take a look at the astrology that we have going on for this week. We're going to put the wheel up here like we have been doing for the last little while to just take a quick peek at everything that is going on, and then we will we'll discuss it. So this is the chart of right now. The house locations are specific to my area and my location. So the house is maybe a little bit different. We're not looking at the house placement. We're just visualizing the sign placement and the aspects and just getting a little bit familiar with the chart if we are not already. So we start out here this week on Sunday, and we have both Mercury and Venus are going to be stationing to go retrograde, or stationing to go direct from retrograde this week. If we look at the chart now, we will notice that Mercury in the sign of Pisces, which is in the 6th house. So find those little numbers in the middle there, and then find the number 6. That's the 6th house, and you will find the sign of Pisces there. You'll see the Pisces glyph. If you recognize that. And Mercury is stationing right now. So we'll see Mercury at 26 degrees of Pisces, and you'll see the red S there. That means that Mercury is stationing. Mercury is slowing down from its retrograde period and the appearance of moving backward within the zodiac, and is now stationing to stop, turn direction, and go forward again. Of course, Mercury doesn't actually stop moving in the sky. It's from our perspective that it appears to be moving backwards within its path, but we have that process of, and that visualization of Mercury moving backwards, retracing its steps through the pathway, and then stopping, changing direction, no longer moving backwards, no longer retracing its steps and revisiting places that it's already been, and now stopping, changing direction, and moving forward. The same thing is going to happen with Venus later on this week. So we have Mercury stationing direct. If you notice, we also have the North Node right at 26 degrees at the moment. So Mercury is stationing right on top of the North Node. That makes that station even more powerful than the stations normally are. And then we have Venus and Saturn coming together at 25 degrees of Pisces. This one has started coming through the weekend, so you may already be starting to feel this one. This one's going to stick with us through the rest of the week and into next week. If we take this chart forward, Monday into Tuesday, we see that Venus separates by 1 degree from Saturn, so still sitting pretty close right there with it. Tuesday, Wednesday still at 24, Thursday, Friday. And then come Saturday, we have Saturn stationing to go direct, that same motion that Mercury is doing earlier on in the week on Monday. So Venus also has been moving backwards, retracing its steps, revisiting, replanning, reorganizing, re-looking at things, and reconfiguring her path. Now she is stationing, so she is stopping, changing direction, and she's going forward. So we have both of these planets that are changing direction in the sign of Pisces. We have Venus at 24, Saturn at 25, North Node at 26, Mercury at 28. So, you know, those planets being right there with the North Node, even Venus, it's only 2 degrees away. So you can say that both of these planets are stationing right with the North Node here, which just amplifies that stationing. Venus, being that it's separated, the directional change is going to take Venus back towards the North Node. So it is an applying aspect rather than a separating. So even though they're just a couple degrees away, they're well within the engagement range of 3 degrees, but Venus is also moving closer to the North Node. So that right there is makes it a little bit more potent. So those are the main things that I want to focus on this week. We also still have that interaction that we talked about last week coming into play with Saturn, Uranus, and Mars. So you have the trine. If I back this up a couple days, back here to Monday, we'll see that Mars at 26 degrees of Cancer in the 10th house in this chart is still within a trine to Saturn. So there's still that very serious, focus-driven, and very direct energy that we've had going on, but it is starting to fade a little bit coming into this week. So focusing mostly on what we have going on in the sign of Pisces here this week with the stations and the Saturn activity and the North Node activity that we have here. So that is a breakdown of what we're going to focus on this week here. Okay, so I'm going to take the chart down there, and then we're going to come back to our intention. Our intention this week is love and hope prevail. Love and hope prevail. So when I think of the word prevail, I think of something that is sustaining, something that we're fighting for, something that, if it prevails, it feels like it's conquering over something, like it's standing strong. I don't have the exact definition in front of me. Sometimes I do that, but the word prevail feels very strong. It feels conquering. It feels like it's standing up for itself. And when we've had these planets moving in a retrograde fashion, they both started out in the sign of Aries, where we had the solar eclipse. They've moved back into the sign of Pisces. So when we've had these planets originally moving direct in the sign of Aries, Aries is a very confident, bold, strong, forward-moving action sign, right? So when these two planets earlier this year entered the sign of Aries, they started out moving quickly. They started out moving boldly. They started out feeling very empowered and, you know, like they're ready to move forward. But then something happened. They shifted direction and they started having to relook at their path. They started looking at what they started doing so quickly and maybe what they initiated, maybe without fully looking at the whole picture, or just stepping into something with such exuberance that maybe we missed a couple details or something like that. So we have planets moving through the sign of Aries, through the sign of Mars, through the sign of the Ram, where things are moving quickly, things are moving suddenly. And then that retrograde very well could have thrown things off balance, off kilter kind of quick, because when you're moving so quickly and then you stop, it's more like a fast stop, right? Like think when you're in a car and you're driving and then you put on the brakes, like if you're going at like 10 miles an hour versus like 30 miles an hour, like that stop is much quicker when you're going at a higher speed, right? So it's as if there's been this symbolic way in which Mercury and Venus started out through the sign of Aries, moving boldly, quickly, courageously, you know, standing strong, and then we're kind of knocked back in a way. So then they come back through the sign of Aries, and then they move back into the sign of Pisces. Pisces is not at quite as confident, bold, and strong moving in a fiery cardinal starting, initiating type way that Aries is. There's still movement within the sign of Pisces, but it's much more emotional. It's much more empathetic, much more feeling based. There's a lot more that is considered rather than just moving forward without considering all of the details, or maybe even considering any of the details. Pisces likes to look at everything and soak everything in. It's the psychic sponge of the zodiac. So when these planets retrograded back into the sign of Pisces, not only did they move back into that space that is maybe less clear and less focused and maybe a little bit less direct, but they also moved into a space that might need a little bit more reassurance, a little bit more love, a little bit more, maybe a little bit more TLC in a way. So these planets, as they've moved back into the sign of Pisces, maybe they haven't been quite as, maybe there's been more intuitive feeling, maybe then there's been more emotion involved, but maybe they haven't been quite as strong and quite as confident as they have been moving backwards through the sign of Pisces. Now both of them are stopping, changing direction, and they are moving back forward again. They're still in the sign of Pisces. Venus does very well in the sign of Pisces. It's her sign of exaltation. So other than the signs where she rules of Taurus and Aries, or sorry, Taurus and Libra, this is the next best place for her to be in. She's very, she has some similarities with the sign of Pisces. She likes to create things. She likes to have cohesion and unity and balance. She likes people coming together and things coming together, aesthetics, artwork. There's that emotional connection as well as that emotional equilibrium in the sign of Pisces. And Venus likes to create an equilibrium around on her own. So they can be very creative, they can be very artistic together, they can be very imaginative when you have Venus in the sign of Pisces. So now that she is going to be, at the end of this week, moving direct in the sign of Pisces, then maybe she can start to move forward in a more in a little bit more confident way, but at first it's a little more subtle, it's a little more intuitive, it's more like coming up with a little bit of the ideas and the tidbits and the creativity starting to come in. Maybe little ideas and little intuitive prompts start to come in. Maybe there's emotional connections and we're able to feel into our feelings maybe a little bit more clearly in a way. Mercury starting to move direct in the sign of Pisces. Pisces is not necessarily the place that Mercury likes to be. It is opposite Mercury sign of Virgo, but there are good things that can come from Mercury being in the sign of Pisces as well. It's just not its place where it likes to be, because Mercury likes things to be clear, it likes details, it likes to be able to separate and compartmentalize things, it likes to be able to organize things, it likes to be able to separate little ideas and pull them apart, where Pisces is the opposite. Like Pisces likes to bring things together, it likes to unify, it likes to look at all of the things, where Mercury likes to look at little teeny pieces. So when you have Mercury in the sign of Pisces, there can be a little bit of a mental overwhelm. There can be a way in which there are lots of ideas and lots of emotions coming in, but sometimes that's inspiring. Sometimes we can get creative from that and we can come up with ideas, and there's passion that is involved there. So now that Mercury is starting to move direct, right on that north node, so that's that point that pulls us towards and amplifies whatever it touches. So when we have Mercury stationing to go direct in the sign of Pisces right on top of the north node, we could be moving forward in a very hopeful, like our intention, and hopeful, optimistic, and an inspired type way. So that's moving through the sign of Pisces. Eventually, these two planets are going to move back into the sign of Aries, where they can come back with that full force, fiery action of going across the places where they've already been, across the degrees they've already been, and then they can have that strong, bold, creative, independent action. So it's like we're setting the stage for that here as these two planets start to go forward. Venus and Saturn coming together is, so Venus representing the things that we love, beauty, desire, what brings us harmony, what brings us peace, the things that we enjoy, our relationships, where we find love, where we find connections with others, relationships with women and maternal type relationships and things like that, coming into contact with Saturn, the planet of maturity, the planet of experience, the planet of wanting to get things right, the planet of hard work and things that last a long time and stand the test of time here. So when you have Venus and Saturn coming together, it feels like prevail is a good word that prevail feels like a good Saturnian type word. Like it's going to persist, it's going to find a way, it's going to stand strong, it's going to be foundational, it's frameworkal, it's, you know, it's strong, it's solid, it's things that will last a lifetime, will last forever. And then we have love, that is a Venus word. Hope, I feel like, is a Venus word as well. And I feel like hope or hopeful is a very Piscean type word. We have a lot of Pisces energy that we have going on here. And then the other thing that I did not point out on the wheel is that we have the full moon in the sign of Libra at the end of the week. So shall I bring that back up just a moment here? Currently, this chart is on Monday. We're going to go forward to Saturday, where we have the full moon in the sign of Libra here. 23 degrees of Libra is where the full moon is going to be at the end of this week. What I think is interesting mostly with this full moon here, first of all, this full moon is fully wrapping up the Aries-Libra eclipse axis that we've had activated. We've now shifted into the eclipses across the Virgo-Pisces axis. We've been having eclipses across Aries and Libra for the last couple years now, and since the last solar eclipse was in the sign of Aries a couple weeks ago, that was the new moon for the lunar cycle. This is the full moon for the lunar cycle that was initiated with the last solar eclipse that we had in the sign of Aries. So this full moon wraps up the culmination of that entire eclipse cycle. So that is significant because it is a culmination within the lunar cycle, but it's also a culmination within the greater eclipse cycle. So that is things coming to fruition, whatever has been building within this eclipse cycle within the last couple of years. You may see it over this, like this week and next week, you may see it just really showing its face and coming into full fruition. Whatever has been birthed and has grown is now coming to where we can see the fruits of the labor, and it is fully expressed both within the lunar cycle and that eclipse cycle that is finishing up here. So there's significance within that, as well as almost every single planet is activated during this full moon that we have coming up here. So we have both the sun and the moon, obviously, because they're part of the full moon. Full moons are when the sun and moon are in opposition. We have, I'm just going to follow around the planets around from the moon. So the moon is in the first house in this chart, and then if we go up to the 10th house, we'll see Mars in the sign of Cancer. Mars is within range of both Uranus at 25 degrees of Taurus in the 8th house, and Mercury and the North Node in the 6th house here. So we have aspects from Mercury. Jupiter does not have any aspects. It's one of the two planets that don't have any aspects at this point. We already talked about Uranus coming into aspect with Mars, and at the same time it's making aspect to those planets in the sign of Pisces in the 6th house. We already talked about the sun. The next glyph that you see there is Chiron at 23 degrees. So we don't talk about Chiron here all the time, but Chiron is conjoined the sun here too. So there's a lot of healing involved with this full moon here. Neptune is not necessarily in aspect, but it is just, it's at that critical degree of 0 degrees where it's recently ingressed into the sign of Aries. Mercury, we've already talked about the aspects that Mercury is making this week, as well as all the other planets in the sign of Pisces. Pluto's in the 5th house. Pluto is not necessarily making any degree-based aspects unless we look at this very long aspect that we have between Neptune and Pluto, but that's a sextile and it's pretty long, so that's not necessarily one that we're looking at. But all of the major inner planets, they all have aspects going on. We have major conjunctions. Really, it's just Pluto and Jupiter that don't have aspects going on with the full moon here. So this is a very lit up full moon. There is a lot going on, and it feels like, the full moon is in the sign of Libra, so there is a level of balancing, of wanting to bring justice, of wanting to bring diplomacy and having things be level and fair and just, wanting things to be balanced, wanting them to be even, wanting there to be cohesion and smoothness, wanting things to not be rough and not be have jagged edges in some way, whether that's literally or figuratively. So there's a want to bring peace, there's want to bring cohesion. In the full moon just being in the sign of Libra. It's ruled by Venus, which is in the sign of Pisces. Very hopeful, very dreamy, very romantic, very creative and otherworldly, very much wanting to hope and dream, wanting to bring in love. Saturn is there in aspect, prevailing, strong. We still have that Mars-Saturn thing, which is very, very strong, very decisive, very focused. So it's like love and hope prevail. Love and hope are strong. They will bring us through. They will see us moving forward. Neptune in the sign of Aries, we've talked about how that's going to be for the next 14 years. This is an era that we're entering. Neptune is a planet that represents compassion and understanding within its own, and it is in the sign of Aries. It's in the sign of the warrior. So fighting for what we believe in, fighting for where we find peace and the love that we want, and where we think there should be compassion and maybe where there shouldn't be compassion. Fighting for what we believe in is very Neptunian in the sign of Aries. So the idea of needing to have hope and love prevail and being strong for that and fighting for that, I feel like that's Neptune in the sign of Aries in its own right. Neptune in Aries is going to bring lots of standing up for what we believe in. And many of us believe that whatever it is that we believe in will bring love and hope, and then it will bring positive things prevailing. So whether that we are on the right track or accurate or not, typically that's what we believe about our beliefs, at least in one way or another. So interesting energy that we have shifting points, we have turning points as far as the eclipses go. Moving out of that energy, we won't really be talking about the eclipses a whole lot here except for reflecting back on it. And we have direction changes for both Venus and Mercury this week. So it's a shifting of a perspective, and things that have been maybe a little bit difficult or not quite at hand, maybe they will start to come back, or things that have floated away will start to come back a little bit. So that's the astrology that we're going to focus on this week. I just want to bring lots of love and lots of hope into our meditation this week. I really do. That's really what I want to bring into it. I feel like individually and collectively, we can all just really use that. So let's take a look at the cards for this week. Take a deep breath here a minute. Okay, so I have a tarot card and I have an oracle card for this week. So the first card that came up was the Page of Pentacles. However, it was in the reverse format. So Page of Pentacles reversed. And at first I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Here I'm talking about forward movement energy. and like the shifting of directions. And then the Page of Pentacles, when it's upright, is optimistic, it's forward moving, it's stepping into a new venture, new level of energy, new physical prospects. It's the Page of Pentacles. So this has to do with the material world. So this has to do with our resources and our assets, sometimes our job and our career, the material world that we find ourselves in. And it's moving forward, it's stepping into something new. So when the Page of Pentacles is reversed, either there's a lack of motivation to step into things, or there's a lack of ability, or there's something that's holding us back. We're not stepping into new energy. We're stopping and standing still in a way. And then when I had that thought, I thought, oh, the stationing moments of these planets. The stationing moments of these planets is where they symbolically appear to stop, stand still, shift, and change direction. They are going one way, they stop and say, okay, I think I went back as far as I need to, I've gathered what I need to, and then they stop and they start moving forward and they go back on their path. Like, if you're walking down a trail and you drop something out of your pocket and then you have to like go back and grab the thing, you only go back as far as you need to retrieve what you need to before you continue on your path. And then there's so many steps that you've already taken before you get like back on the part of the path that you haven't been down. It's kind of like that. So the Page of Pentacles reversed, I'm wondering about the stopping, standing still, and slowly starting to move forward. Pisces is a much slower moving sign than Aries is. It's a feminine sign, it's a water sign, it's a mutable sign, so it has shifting and it has changeability within it, but it's not that quick starting, initiating fire sign, the place of Mars, that Aries is. So, especially when we have Saturn right here with Pisces with these planets that are stationing, Saturn is a slow-moving planet. Saturn does not rush. Saturn looks at all of the details and moves through slowly. Make sure we've checked all the boxes and we've crossed all of the T's and we've dotted all of the I's type of thing. So what if this Page of Pentacles reverse is telling us to slow down? What if it's telling us that if things feel like we haven't been able to quite move forward, then this is the space that we are supposed to be in for whatever reason here. So slowing down, not moving quite so fast, and maybe stopping and looking. So then I thought, okay, I want a little bit of a follow-up. So what exactly should we be gaining or gathering from this Page of Pentacles that is slowing us down and not having us, quite moving forward, has us standing still for a minute first? Patience and planning. Patience and planning. So, patience and planning. We are moving forward. However, we need to slow down and we need to have patience and we need to plan our steps. So before we move into this, before these planets move back into the sign of Aries, first they need to move slowly and they need to plan, they need to think, they need to feel into things, they need to bring in all of the things and consider all of the things in the place of Jupiter where things are, where we want to bring growth and cohesion and proliferation, and we want things to grow, but we want them to be nurtured and we want them to be cared for. So that's a slower moving atmosphere than the Mars fire sign of the sign of Aries. So moving slowly, and as we are moving slowly, and maybe we are moving in the direction that we want to be moving, but maybe not quite at the speed that we want to be, feel like we should be. I don't know. You guys know how I feel about those, should be's and need to be type things. Keeping that love and that hope and having love and hope prevail, and keeping the optimistic feeling, keeping ourselves looking forward as we are moving forward, and just moving forward with love, whatever that means, of coming from our love from us, love from others, love from us to others, moving within divine love for the universe, for nature, for our Creator, for God, for whatever works well for you in your thinking. Self-love, having love for ourselves before we can move forward, and then having hope, staying hopeful, staying optimistic, knowing that we are on the right path. We have had a lot going on through the month of March. There has been a lot of astrology, and we're just coming off of eclipse season here. Like I said, the full moon at the end of the week is going to just really close that out. The farthest you could extend that would be, like to the end of the lunar cycle, but I really feel like the full moon is a good culmination. You may still see some of that playing out long term, but the strong, intense energy of eclipse season is wrapping up here. So there's been a lot of astrology that has been in the eclipse season, where eclipse seasons on their own are very, very intense. If we look at the chart, we see that Mars is at the end of Cancer. So by the end of next week, April 17th to 18th time frame, Mars is going to be moving into the sign of Leo, and it's going to be moving into that opposition with Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. We'll be talking about that next week and beyond. So, there's some more intensity to come. So, if we can be in a space where we're slowing down, we're having patience, we're planning, we have love, we are having hope, and that is prevailing beyond all, then we are moving in the right direction. There has been a lot of call, especially here in the United States and elsewhere around the world. I can just speak here in the United States for love and for hope and for ideologies to prevail, whether whichever. I'm not here to talk politics. You guys know that I don't do that here, but you can see where this need for love and hope is prevailing, personally and collectively. So yeah, that's what I see here. That's how it's coming through for this week for me. And I think it's going to be, it's always interesting at the beginning of the week when you're looking forward to the energy and you're just wondering, thinking about the things that you have coming up this week and how they tie in, and then just leaving the rest up to the wonderings of the universe, of open to how is this going to play out. But then when you have the astrology behind it and you know what's going on, and then you see it happening, then you see the astrology and you think, oh, it's right there. That's the full moon in the sign of Libra coming through, or that's Venus stationing right on Saturn. That is Mercury on the North Node here, pulling us into that creative, imaginative space. Venus and Saturn coming together is that maturation of what we are desiring, what we hope for. Maybe it's looking at our emotions in the sign of Pisces and the way we connect with others in a water sign, and the way we bring all of these things in. And we're able to appreciate the finer aspects or the more finer details of something, maybe where we have a little bit more refined taste for something, like there's a quality over quantity type thing when Venus and Saturn come together. So you start to see those things within your life, and then it becomes a little bit more magical, and those connections are there. So very cool, very interesting, and maybe not the fastest moving week that we've had this week. And is that really a bad thing? Because we've had lots of fast moving weeks here. So that's the astrology for this week here. I'm taking a look at the comments here really quick because there are a couple of them. Nikita feels hopeful with the intention. Yes, I love the intention myself. I think it feels very positive. Thinking of creating strength popped out of your mind. Yes. With strength, it will help us with the energy that we need for the day. Absolutely. I've seen the strength card coming up quite a bit here lately too. Working on balance this week. Oh, the word balance. Yes. So that's a very Venusian word, Susan, balance, and especially in the sign of Libra. So you're going to see more of that coming through this week here. Motivated pulling weeds. I love it. I'm all about it. We are in the spring season, and it's motivated, and that's very good clearing energy too, right? Pulling weeds. It's very good at moving energy around and shifting things and clearing space for the new here. So I love that. All right, we're going to shift towards our meditation. I'm going to leave the intention up here just for one more moment for you to take a peek at it here. Love and hope prevail. Love and hope prevail. We're going to take our finishing dose of hopeful Pisces here with Venus and Mercury as they begin to station to go direct, moving through the last little bit of Pisces here. All right, I'm going to bring the intention down, and then you'll see our intentional candle, white as always. I like to use white because it is clearing, purifying, as well as amplifying. It's setting the stage for whatever you need out of this meditation, setting a clearing space. You guys know that there's white sage oil in these candles that I use, so that amps up that clearing and purifying and just clearing out a blank slate for you to come into this meditation with fresh breath, fresh perspective, and moving into the new week with whatever you need to bring into this week. And you know, with the white candle, you can change the color of this candle mentally to whatever color you need it to be, if you choose to do so, or you can just leave it white as well. Not a whole lot on the table this week. Honestly, I'm kind of resetting at the moment. We had the Holistic Fair here in Holland yesterday, and I did a bunch of readings there. It was absolutely wonderful, magical. There was great connections. So anybody that is joining us here from that, because I know there was a lot of excitement about the meditation, thank you for being here. Welcome. So I just have a couple of my, faithful. These two tiger's eye that I have sitting here with me are literally the first two crystals that I ever got, and I still have them all of these years later. And then a little bit of obsidian and fluorite here just to ground as well as expand. So these are just a few pocket stones that I pulled out rather than some bigger crystals. So we're going to move into lighting our intentional candle and then moving into the intention in the meditation. As I light the intentional candle, I'm going to recite the intentional phrase out loud. As I do so, I encourage you to recite the phrase with me in any capacity that you are able to, whether that's saying that out loud in your head, writing it down. I like to keep it on a sticky note next to my computer during the week, whatever works for you. So recite the intentional phrase, love and hope prevail. Okay, so I light the intentional candle. The flame ignites, and as the flame ignites, it begins to grow. As the flame grows, so does our intention. Love and hope prevail. Love and hope prevail. If it feels like it's been difficult lately, maybe hope has been hard to find, maybe love on some level, whether it's for yourself to another, remembering that divine love has been a little difficult. Let's breathe that back in with this meditation. Let's take a nice deep breath in together, wherever you are, eyes open, eyes closed, and breathe in that love and that hope. Breathing in and exhaling, releasing any stress or tension you may have at the moment. Good. If you haven't already, I invite you to find a nice comfortable position, seated, laying down, whatever works for you. If you are ready to go ahead and close your eyes, go ahead and do so. If you aren't quite ready to do that yet, that's okay. Soften your gaze. Perhaps let your eyes fall towards something that you can look towards, maybe gaze beyond, but not stare quite so intently at. And as we settle into our meditative space here, begin to turn your attention towards your breath. As we first begin this meditation, I want us to start by just making space to acknowledge the breath that we came here with. Not changing, not altering, not judging, just acknowledging and honoring the breath that you came here with. Noticing the speed, noticing the quality, acknowledging without judging, without altering or changing. Only observing, noticing. acknowledging, and in return honoring the breath. I like starting with honoring where our breath is at this moment, because that honors the path that has brought you to this very moment. Every experience of today, of the week, of the month, the year, and of this life have brought you to this very moment. Notice if you feel tension anywhere in your body. Notice if your shoulders are relaxed or if they're scrunched up towards your ears. Notice if your arms and your fingers are relaxed. Notice if your tongue is relaxed within your mouth or if it's pushing against your teeth or your lips or towards the roof of your mouth. Let it relax. Noticing your abdomen, your hips, and your legs. Noticing if there's any tension. If you're able to release that, go ahead and do so. If you're not quite ready, that's okay. Just acknowledging and honoring where we are at this moment. Providing our body with space and love today. Now that we've taken ample time to sit with where we are at this moment, we bring our attention back to our breath. Here, we begin to deepen the inhale and the exhale. As you begin to deepen the breath, start with taking your first breath in. As you do so, I encourage you to set a goal to have each inhale be slightly deeper, slightly longer, and bringing in slightly more air than the one that came before it. Slowly you take a nice deep breath in. Perhaps once you get to the top, you pause on the inhale. And the same goal stands for the exhale. As you slowly start to release your breath, allow your only progressive goal to be that that exhale releases slightly more air, slightly longer, and releases slightly more stress than the one that came before it. Continue this cycle of breathing in and breathing out, allowing your only expectation to be that each inhale is slightly longer and slightly more fulfilling than the one that came before it, and each exhale is slightly longer and slightly more fulfilling than the one that came before that. Small micro changes between these breaths are okay. Large monumentous changes between these breaths are okay. Moving at your own pace. This week may be a week of slowly getting back on track. A place where you can be kind to yourself and others. A place where you can move slowly and intentionally. Perhaps this isn't the moment to be busting forward full force, but perhaps the preparation phase for that. Today, the universe gives us the Page of Pentacles reversed, not blazing forward into that new energy, full force, quite yet. Perhaps we slow down. Perhaps we see where there is a hopeful energy. Perhaps we see where we can provide a little more love to ourselves and to others. Perhaps we can take a moment as these planets are stationing to move direct in the sign of Pisces. The place often correlated with intuitive guidance, psychic energies. Really, that just means connections to the universe and to our higher self. A place where all of the connections come together. Maybe we can step into a moment of divine love, universal love, love for the earth, love for our path, love for the moments that tell us to slow down and be patient, to plan, to set the course. Mercury in Pisces, stationing direct right on the North Node, amplifying that imaginative and creative mind that we find with this combination, allowing us to dream and expand our mind, allowing us to come up with new collective ideas, perhaps from an accumulation of ideas, experiences, thoughts, emotions, patterns. Shortly after, Venus also stations to move direct, forward motion. This planet right with Saturn, creating new Venusian structures that will last a lifetime and beyond. Emotional, intuitive connections that will not be forgotten. Venus and Pisces can be very creative and imaginative as well. It loves to bring in emotional empathy, compassion, connections. Love and hope are strong with these planets stationing to go direct in the sign of Pisces. And they will prevail, Saturn. focus wanders away, come back to your breath. Standing in this space of love and hope. As you sit in your meditative space, I want you to picture Venus and Mercury moving around the space that you are in. Picture them however they come through to you, whether that's a color, whether that's visualizing the planet, whether that's seeing the words, the glyphs, perhaps a mythological tie coming in. Picture these two planetary energies circling around you. Moving cohesively in one direction as they are virtually traveling together through this retrograde process. Venus's process is a little longer than Mercury, but essentially following the same path in a very similar timeline. And as you see these two planets circling around you, picture them bringing with them love, hope, empathy, understanding. Feel that coming into your being. Notice how it makes you feel. Perhaps it makes you sit up a little bit straighter. Perhaps it warms your being. Perhaps it puts a smile on your face or makes you feel slightly more comfortable in the position that you are sitting. Notice that they begin to move a little bit faster and a little bit stronger as they continue to swirl around you, their strength prevailing and entering your life. Love and hope prevail. Eclipse season is coming to an end. Venus and Mercury retrograde are coming to an end. As we pick up the pieces to move forward, as we stand from the reconfiguration that these planets have went through, the death and rebirth process that they've participated in, both independently and together, collectively. Perhaps it's okay to begin the forward motion in a slow, steady pace. Perhaps we don't need to stand up and run right into what they are bringing our way. Perhaps we can stand slowly, yet strongly. Look around, observe what has moved in, what has moved out. We can survey the scene. we can increase our ability to process as well as our ability to love and to hold space for ourselves, for others, for Mother Earth, and for the universe. As we navigate this week, moving towards the full moon in the sign of Libra at the very end of the week, the place ruled by Venus, a diplomatic, fair, just, smooth, and leveling sign. I hope you feel held, cared for, and nurtured. May you feel the appropriate balance of moving forward, but yet taking your time that works well for you within this path and within this moment. May the maturity of Saturn remind you that as Venus begins to move forward, perhaps what she needs has changed. Perhaps she has realized what truly is and is not important. And that she is on the right path. And that you are on the right path. May you feel loved and supported in your motions, and may hope prevail above all other emotions as you move forward into this week. Slowly, gently, but loved and hopeful. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, each and every one of you that have come here in any capacity that you're able to. Thank you, thank you, thank you to those of you that came to the Holistic Fair yesterday and got readings. Thank you to those of you that have reached out since then. Thank you, thank you, thank you to every one of you that I get to be within your space, and you will come into my space in any capacity that we intermingle our energies together. Really finding a space of forwardness, but contemplativeness at the same time this week. Take time to care for yourself. Take time to patience and planning. These cards are somewhat newer, and they are just so beautiful. They have such beautiful colors. You know, this card is interesting because there's two pillars in this card, and one of which has very straight and organized lines on it, and the other one does not. However, the lines are extending towards that other pillar. So it's like part of the process is there, but the other part of the process is still forming, and those lines are still completing their journey and their process to fully move across our lives. So although a lot of the work has already been done, there's still a little bit more there. So that's where this slow moving thing, and maybe if we're not so easy on ourselves, maybe we feel like we should be further than we are, or we should be taking more steps or things like that. But having that love for ourselves and for others, and the love for the process and a love for the steps in the journey as we move through. And that right there is what can bring in a little extra hope and have it prevail. So yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, everybody. Let's see, I'm looking at the comments. I'm seeing mention of black kyanite and shunganite. Yeah, both of those are very protective. And yeah, black kyanite, there's blue, I've had green kyanite and black kyanite. Very protective, and very, both of those, they transmute and transform energy. So they shift the energy to where, like, it doesn't block it quite as, at least this is my experience, it doesn't block it quite as much as like obsidian just like reflects it off. It shifts and changes the energy into, moves it through some sort of conduit that makes it a little bit more usable, or a little bit more like user friendly in a way. Very, very cool. So yeah, I hope everybody has a great, wonderful week, and I will see you all next week. Look for the intention next Friday, look for the weekly video next Saturday, and that is a nice little prep for us to come here and meet the next Sunday. I think there is something in taking the different steps in the approach, just as in there is something to the way that, to the process that goes into this meditation, and the process of setting up for like a ritual or things like that, or any sort of process where you take your time and take the steps. It's very Venus Saturn. It's very on par for this week. But when we have that within this process each week of taking these steps and following it and stepping into the energies, then we're making this conscious relationship, and we are acknowledging and understanding the energies that are there, and we are working with them, we are leaning into them, we are understanding, what they could possibly be symbolizing, and what could be the overarching themes, and then we can lean into that. So I like that. I like the steps in the process, and it seems to really be serving me very well. So I hope that it serves all of you equally well. So have a great week, and I will see all of you next week. I hope you all have the most wonderful week, and I hope you all feel very loved, supported, and if it feels like things have not been moving forward, then I hope that coming out of this week, you can feel that forward moving energy. So Mercury is almost out of retrograde. It will be for the majority of this week. So hang on just a little bit longer, guys. Mercury and Venus are both stationing to go direct, and then just in time to move into Mars-Pluto opposition energy that we're going to have for the rest of April here. So have a good week, and I will see you all next Sunday. Bye, everybody.